Now, I know because you listen to this show, you love Chicago. In fact, you probably know your community very well. Maybe you're involved in a block club or some other neighborhood organization because you're passionate about the place you live. Well, you might be able to turn that passion into a profession, helping others find neighborhoods that they love with a career in real estate. When you earn your license with Realtors Real Estate School, you'll have access to a community of real estate professionals who can offer guidance and mentorship. Learn how you can get started this summer. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com/begin. Today on CityCast Chicago, Governor Pritzker is on the national stage. We've got a real life Scott's Tots nightmare. And are we finally over the festival hump? Rounding up the news with me today is executive producer Simone Alisea. It's Tuesday, August 6th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Simone. How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you back, Jacoby.
I'm glad to be back. It was hot as hell in Houston and Atlanta. But honestly, I'm glad I got to avoid the very lies-filled Trump visit to Chicago. I'm actually glad I was not behind the mic for that. And so, yeah, another Tuesday, more stories to go.
Oh, yeah. Still plenty of news to chat about here, though.
Hey, and the big one is Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to announce her running mate at any time today. In fact, maybe the video already dropped by the time you're hearing this. But over the past few days and weeks, there has been so much chatter about whether or not Governor J.B. Pritzker would make the cut. It sounded like he made it into that round of maybe final 6, final 5 candidates. I'm not really sure he broke into that final 3, but Simone, for years, we have talked about Pritzker's potential growth from Illinois governor to maybe one day presidential candidate, and it doesn't look like he's leaving the national stage anytime soon. Why exactly is that?
Yeah, it is funny, right? I do think there has been chat about Pritzker, like maybe having higher ambitions more or less like a year since he actually took office, which is kind of, I just feel like the chatter has been nonstop, even before this.
And it's not fueled by just like national news outlets. This is an Illinois, Chicago topic. When I was on Twitter the last few weeks, the amount of folks, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but the amount of folks who are tapped into the Governor J.B. Pritzker, potential president, potential vice president
dialogue,
right. It's a lot of people, and a lot of people have an opinion on Governor Pritzker's track record in Illinois. And these are folks I know aren't always tapped into national and aren't even always tapped into local politics. But the name J.B. Pritzker is one a lot of Chicagoans know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I think there's a few things going on here. Number one, obviously, I think has been Pritzker's stance and work on abortion rights, right? Illinois becoming, particularly after Roe v. Wade was overturned, becoming this sort of island of abortion rights among other states where rights were slashed. You know, we just last week, we saw a report that, abortion clinics were expecting to see another influx after Iowa recently just restricted abortion. And it's extremely restrictive abortion law just went into effect. And to that end, Pritzker sort of led the charge and became the face of enshrining those rights in state law. And then took it even a step farther by creating a nonprofit to advocate for abortion rights nationwide, putting in some of his billions of dollars into that sort of even on a not even just as the governor of a state, but on a almost a personal level, right? Mm-hmm. On top of that, other progressive bona fides, right? The passage of the Safety Act, justice reform, really big piece of legislation under Pritzker's watch, pushes to end the sub-minimum wage, but also lots of efforts to bring business to Illinois, lots of efforts to put Illinois into a better financial situation, right? Illinois, a bad history of poor credit ratings and debt, and also, of course, history of corruption at the state level that Pritzker has been trying to combat. And then on top of that, right, on top of sort of any accomplishments you might attribute to him as governor, he's also really loyal to the Biden-Harris administration and has been a leader in the Democratic Party, leading fundraising efforts here in Illinois, leveraging his billionaire status, leveraging the access to money and power that he has, initially really stuck by Biden as sort of best as he could before the president ended up dropping out of the race, and came out pretty early on and has spoken very highly of Harris's candidacy as for president. And so obviously has ingratiated himself into their apparatus already. I think that's why he has become much more recognizable. All this to say, I think he's an extremely unlikely VP candidate for Harris.
Very, very unlikely. And for me, when I started looking at the different conversations that are taking place around the choice for VP, obviously at the top we already knew this was a white man race. Let's just be real.
For Harris, like that's got to be priority for her, you have to imagine.
And so some of the major candidates who came down on that short list, largely white men: governor of Minnesota, governor of Pennsylvania, governor of Kentucky, and obviously the governor of Illinois. But then there were multiple conversations happening at once. A lot of young people, organizers, progressives wanted a candidate who took a stronger take on Israel's bombardment of the civilian population of Gaza, largely throughout 2024. And let's be real, most of the people on Harris's shortlist had very similar statements. No one really stood out. So when we moved to the next thing, it started to become about, okay, well, what is their track record? Like what do they bring to the table in terms of maybe bringing in a more center base, like people who are maybe on the fence? And that's where you started to hear names like Mark Kelly out in Arizona, a battleground state, someone who is military service, someone who was an astronaut. Right. Then you started to hear candidates who had stronger progressive records, like a Governor Pritzker, like a Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota. But it feels like there wasn't room for both of them on that list, especially when you have to consider that last category bucket is a swing state. And let's be real, Illinois,
not a swing
Minnesota, these aren't swing states necessarily. Not to say Tim isn't still in the running. Hey, by the time this comes out, he might be the candidate. But that's where they started to really center in. And it seems like Josh Shapiro out in Pennsylvania has sort of moved up that betters list ahead of folks like Pritzker. It's because he's in a battleground state, right? He's young. People have, said he has great oratory skills. It does seem like young people and progressives are being turned off by a potential choice. But again, it's clear that for all of Pritzker's bona fides, some of those other categories matter, particularly delivering a state that might be hard to win for the Democrats come November.
Well, and I just think that's part of the calculation, right? To what degree do voters in a state like Pennsylvania or in a state like Arizona care how well the governor of Illinois governed Illinois? I just don't think it really matters. And so despite the fact that, as you said, he was into relatively sort of late round interviews with the Harris team as they go through this kind of condensed running mate finding process, it does seem unlikely that he will be on the stage with Harris in Philadelphia today. That said, that doesn't mean that Pritzker is off the national stage for good, right? There is, I think there's a lot of chat about, could he be leveraging himself to take a possible cabinet position? Pritzker throughout this process has kind of been very circumspect. He has said that he's committed to and enjoys leading the state of Illinois. But that's the thing, is like the president offers you a position in the cabinet. What are you going to do? You're going to say no? You're going to what? Like, is that really what's going to happen? His sister, Penny Pritzker, had worked in the Obama administration. So, there is a family history there. Earlier this spring, people were writing articles about, oh, are we going to see a presidential candidate in Pritzker in 2028? Which I hate that I'm even saying the word 2028, that I'm saying that year and putting it out into the ether as a real year.
Pritzker and Kamala Harris are both 59 years old. So come 2028, will be 63 years old. If she wins in November and is going for a second term, I doubt Pritzker would likely come out to challenge an incumbent. So it would push us into a 2032. But now Pritzker at that point is 67 years old. And the conversation around the age of our candidates has been brought up time and time again throughout this. And so he is on the national stage. But again, that window is it is shrinking. What's up, y'all? I'm back with another Ravinia Roundup. Yes, another one, and I got more shows. All summer long, North America's longest running outdoor music festival is putting on some of the most enjoyable concerts in the Chicago area, point blank period. And trust me, there is something for everybody. August probably has my favorite run of shows of this entire summer. They got Grammy winners all month long, y'all, with Robert Glasper and Chicago's own Jay Ivey on August 14th, The Roots with Diggable Planets and Arrested Development on August 24th, and they've got some excited Ravinia debuts with Gaelic Storm and the High Kings on August 22nd. I know, that's a lot of names, a lot of dates. Go to the link in our show notes for the full schedule. Remember, you can grab a pavilion seat or pack a lunch for the lawn. Either way, your ride on the Metro is free with your ticket. So pick your concert, buy tickets at ravinia.org, and treat yourself. Grab yourself some wine. Do it big when you go out there. Once again, that's ravinia.org. One story I could not let go without us talking about it, and I got to thank our Hey Chicago newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, for sending me this. And this is about a suburban family who has been running a scholarship fund for Chicago students. And apparently, as this newest crop of students were preparing to receive their scholarships, the program is abruptly ending or not fulfilling its promise. And I immediately wrote in the comment section, without even reading the full article, to Sydney, you can't tell me this is not Scott's Tots from The Office. The premise being Michael Scott planned to pay thousands of dollars of scholarship money for kids. In his case, he assumed that by the time they were ready to graduate, he would be rich, well off, had a whole family able to pay for them. That's not the case here. The story's a little bit different, Simone, yes, but a similar result. Can you catch me up?
I think you were not the only person to make this connection when this headline came down. So this goes back to the former Abbott Laboratories exec, Jack Schuler. And this program started a scholarship in his family's name 2 decades ago to help low-income first-generation students go to college. Way back in April even of this year, we saw some reports coming down that was like, well, this program is winding down. They are quickly, getting rid of staff. They are stopping bringing on new people because, essentially for financial reasons. It's just sort of running out of money. Schuler's personal net worth went from, $1 billion to $200 million, right? Like
oh my God, that's a problem I love to have.
You know what I mean? But they were saying that they were going to end this. But at the time in the spring, it still seemed like they were going to honor their commitments to current students.
Yeah, you got to go through high school. You sign a contract to follow, as the article says, a laundry list of rules. The program staff is constantly checking in on you. One student said, we gave ourselves to this organization for 4 years, with some of us even compromising our mental health. That was a direct quote from Stephanie Flores, a rising junior at Pomona College in California, but she's originally one of the scholars from Inglewood.
Right. And so then we get this report, and mind you, we get this at the report comes out at the end of July. Apparently this announcement was made a few weeks earlier. Kids are starting to go to college. Like they are like packing their stuff right now as we speak.
Or are already in college, getting ready to go back.
Or are already in college, are in the middle of their college education. And an email was sent to the remaining scholars to say that they weren't going to honor their commitments for the rest of for everybody who was left. And so you have this group of students who is just left in the lurch, who are looking and struggling for or trying to find ways to make up the difference. And often, too, the other like sort of requirement of this program, it required students to go to these like small liberal arts colleges that are often very expensive. They often do not offer financial aid packages that are as robust as larger schools, as, you know, as a state school might, that kind of thing. It just, I think, led to a lot of confusion and hurt and just awful, I think, for those students.
And one more element is the schools, like you said, on that short list, liberal arts, these are largely white institutions. Most of the kids in these programs are black and brown. And let's remember, Simone, you and I are not far from being that age when we were told college is our only opportunity at more opportunity, at getting a better job, living a better life, starting our family or ourselves out on some strong financial footing. But we know paying for college is a huge barrier for many people. I am still paying off thousands of dollars in college loans. And so offering any amount but $10,000 to a student to complete their college journey, when that is probably only a fraction of what the total cost is. I think you said something earlier. It's another example of how ultimately ineffective relying on philanthropy is and grant opportunities to fill in the gaps of college being way too damn expensive for a good amount of people. And the racial elements thrown on top of this story only make it feel more and more exploitative, because for a black family from Inglewood to rely on some white benefactor to provide college aid and then that to be sort of ripped up under your feet because of their own situation, I think it only creates a stronger amount of distrust, a stronger feeling of, as some would say, the scam of paying for college as it is now. And so, I mean, again, we can laugh at the Scott's Tots connection, but I will be honest, even watching that episode, seeing him stand in front of this room of largely black kids, you know, it created a tension watching the episode, and seeing it play out in this story just reminds you how unfunny the premise really is.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people, too, like really hate that episode of The Office.
Yeah.
In a series full of cringe humor, it is the cringiest and one of the most uncomfortable jokes. And this is why. This is exactly why. It's because when you see something like this happen in real life, it is just, the Schuler family did not respond to WBEZ's request for an interview. You know, this was sort of laid out in an email sent to students. But it is, I think it is extremely frustrating as someone who has recently been through the process of and is continuing to pay off my student loans.
There's no other way than to say that's effed up in every which way possible. I love me some Summertime Shy. I love the amount of events we got coming up. I love covering festivals every single week with you, Moni, but like, gee, are we past the hump yet? Are we over the hill where our summer weekends are just like packed to the gills with events? Again, I'm not complaining, but it's a lot. It's hard to keep the calendar in order. It's hard to plan. I don't know. Even this weekend, I'm thinking about just like staying in the crib and isolating a little bit. It's a lot going on.
Yeah. Every week we've been bringing you these weekly festival updates thanks to our sponsor, Revolution Brewing. And, I do think, I feel like July starts and Chicago is like, oh, yeah, it's July. I'm going to do this. 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 And then like August comes around and they're like, oh, I'm done. Right. But you look at the calendar and you're no. Nope. You're not done. I mean, granted, Lollapalooza's over, so you don't have 400,000 people in Grant Park. We don't have anything quite that big happening, especially now that Riot Fest has moved out to Bridgeview. But looking at just this weekend alone, Jacoby, we have the Air and Water Show, which is huge and is going to be loud, and we're going to hear the Blue Angels.
I'm so close to it now.
Leading up to that. We have the Bud Billiken Parade, the largest black parade in the country. That's happening August 10.
Probably will get out there this year, but again, Ooh, gee, I'm against the sun. I'm rallying against the sun right now.
You've got North Allsted Market Days, which is like, of course, everyone talks about Pride and Pride Fest, but like Market Days is also huge up in North Allsted. And then on top of that, you've got Printers Row Art Fest, Titan Walls Mural Fest. That's all just this weekend, in addition to any number of other block parties and suburban events that we didn't include.
So the answer is no. We are not over the hump. And again, I don't want people to listen to this and think I'm complaining, because I like getting outside. I want y'all to get outside, enjoy Chicago as much as possible. But yeah, when we started this forecasting in late May, early June, I just feel like I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I lied to y'all. I feel like I lied to you, Simone, and I feel like I lied to myself. Because I was certain that I'm going hard all summer, every weekend, restaurants, tastings, festivals. I don't know, probably minutes after Summer Smash back in June, I was like, I don't know if I could do another crowd this big. I don't know if I could be next to this many people again. And even with the smaller festivals, I find myself burning out a lot quicker this summer. I don't know what it is.
I think that's the real trick with this. And like the reason we give you all these options and we tell you about all these things is not because there's an expectation that you go to every single thing. But I often find that like, it'll be like Friday afternoon. I realize I don't really have anything planned for Saturday, or like I want to see a friend, but I don't know what to do. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's XYZ festival going on. Mm-hmm. This would be it's an easy insert activity here moment where it's like, yeah, let's go check out the shops. Let's go get something to eat. This will be fun. And like that, I think, is the beauty of Summerfest season. And then I think particularly in August, when maybe you start to feel that summer guilt, that like, oh, I should be making the most of summer, but I'm also tired because July took a lot out of me.
I don't feel none of that, boy.
I do think we are over the hump in terms of most of the events that we're going to see in the course of August and September are not huge Wicker Park fests, Taste of Randolph, like even Midsummer Fests, like those fests are massive. And bring in so many people. We're really getting into the season of small neighborhood fests. You've got the Taste of Pullman coming up this month. You still have North Coast and Arc Music a little later this month around Labor Day, but that was sort of the last like really huge music fest. And so that has hopefully alleviated some of the pressure that I think still exists in the month of August.
You plan on doing anything this weekend?
So actually this weekend, because I'm trying to avoid the air and water show, I live on the lake, it's loud. I'm actually heading up to Bristol for the Ren Fair. So
nice.
That's my plan.
Well, hey, please stay tapped into Hey Chicago. You can subscribe at chicago.citycast.fm. We will send you the latest headlines, some of the best events across the city directly to your inbox for free every morning, Monday through Friday. And while you're at chicago.citycast.fm, check into our packed events calendar. That's where you'll find a lot of the events we talked about today, but also some great events to put on your calendar for later this August. I want to thank our executive producer, Simone Alisea, for joining me for another one of our fabulous Tuesday roundups.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who listens to CityCast Chicago, who reads Hey Chicago, and to show you my appreciation, some good news. We already gave you plenty of events, so I just want to add another shout out to Chicago Bears legend Devin Hester, who over the weekend was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He leads NFL history with the most return touchdowns ever, and to this day, watching him run back that opening kickoff in the Super Bowl versus the Colts, one of my favorite Chicago sports moments ever. So shout out to Devin Hester, his entire family, and to all of y'all listening. Be back here bright and early tomorrow. We gonna be here. Hopefully you will be too. Peace.
You know that was your good news, right?
Yeah. Was that too long?
That was hella long.
Man, I love Devin Hester. What you want from me?
Hella long.
We love Devin Hester over here. Simone said I got to take a shorter one. I got you.
I was just going to tell Michelle to cut it.